You are listening or watching another episode of AmChat Business Leaders Podcast. My name is Veronika Yorumez, and today we have a special guest, Andy Hunder, president of AmCham Ukraine, who joined us today. Andy, hello, and thank you for being with us today. Welcome.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you for having this, and thank you for doing this wonderful podcast.
Thank you, Andy. Maybe I'll start with a very simple question. Andy, I would like to ask, how are you and your team of AmCham Ukraine? Your team is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of AmChams in Europe. So, how are you and your team members doing these days?
Well, Veronica, for the last 55 days since the war broke up on the 24th of February, the first thing every morning is been checking how the team is. So the team we are the biggest AmCham office in Europe. We have a team of now it's 43. We have 15 people in the EU. We have 20 in internally displaced across Ukraine, and we have 8 in Kiev. Obviously, the men, those aged between 18 to 60 Ukrainian citizens, aren't allowed to leave. But the good news is we are all alive, we are all healthy, and at the moment everyone is safe. Although we have had some moments where we were very much worried about some of the employees, especially in Bucha. One of our employees was stuck there. Bucha is this town just 20 miles north east of Kiev, where we saw the atrocities, and one of our employees, Valeria, was stuck there, and she was very lucky to come out. So, but we're the lucky ones. I mean, we are the lucky ones. We are all alive, we are healthy, and we're looking after the team. And thank you.
Wow, I'm glad we heard of different atrocities all over the Ukraine, so I'm glad your team is safe, whether it is in Ukraine or in other European countries. Um, Following up on that, we read and hear many heartbreaking stories, Andy. Is there maybe a story that you would like to share, or maybe if you could share your story of what was the beginning of war like for you?
Yeah. Well, I woke up at 5 o'clock in on the 24th, and like everyone, we heard, the sounds of the first bombs going off. We heard the air raid sirens, and then we saw the news. We were pretty much we had contingency plans in place. So for 3 weeks before the war, I was already driving around in my car with jerry cans with diesel. So I had a full tank of fuel every single evening. We had paper maps just in case, because we were told that the internet may go down. We had cash, hryvnia local currency. We had some hard currency. And then with my son, I left that morning and we hit the roads. We hit the gridlock. We got stuck. We had to then go around, and we managed to go west. We came to the city of Rivne, which was we thought was quite peaceful. But then that morning, the morning after, as we woke up, the airport was being bombed. So then we went further west. We were in Lviv, and the air raid sirens continued. And then, thankfully, AmCham Slovakia, Roland and the team, they said, why don't you come over to Košice? Which is exactly what we did, and we're very grateful to the team for that. I mean, we have many, many stories I could go on. The team, our business development director, Natalia Chervona, on that morning, she was 7.5 months pregnant. And the question was, what do you do? And she still thought about giving birth in Kiev, but the situation got so tense and so unpredictable that she had to go, west, and she was in Western Ukraine, and then she moved to across the border into Budapest, into Hungary. And I'm delighted to say that since last week she gave birth to two twin boys. So these are really children of the war. But also, as I mentioned, Valeria was in Bucha. We were very concerned for her safety, but we're very grateful for the support that we've received from AmCham's Europe in terms of all the support, including material support for the team members who you know, nearly all left with one bag, and there's not a lot of belongings you can put in one bag. And I remember that morning as I was leaving my apartment in central Kiev, and then thinking, what do I take? And then at that moment you think how little in life you actually need out of material things, and then pretty much everything maybe you need in life can sometimes fit into one little bag.
Yes, no, but I cannot imagine, as you mentioned, that you were for a few days or weeks driving a car that you were hoping that you have enough gasoline to leave the city if necessary, and then what to pack. Yeah, I cannot imagine a small backpack. It's all that you can take and see an unknown future where you will go and where you'll end up. I think you guys are very brave, and you have our great admiration for how you're dealing with the crisis. Can you say what is the current mood of the people of Ukraine? How the people? I know there has been changes when it comes to the war. There 40,000 Russian soldiers left the northern part of Ukraine, and there is something that we perceive or we see as the next phase. But first, do you think it's a small victory for the people of Ukraine for what you already achieved? That basically you managed to push a huge army compared to the size of your country away, and what is the current mood of people, or how do you think people feel?
I think it is obviously the bravery of the Ukrainian people that are there fighting off this what some say is the second largest army in the world, and how bravely Ukrainians fought off and saved the capital Kiev. Because many sort of forecasts and some intelligence was saying that the capital could fall within 3-4 days. That didn't happen, and that's thanks to the bravery of Ukrainian men and women that did defend it. Especially we saw the battles, especially around in terms of Bucha, Hostomel, and other towns across. I think there is. I think definitely the war is still far from over. I think what this has done, this has very much brought the nation together. If there was political bickering before, I think now it's a very much united nation. Obviously, the risk of number one is survival of the people in terms of staying alive. Because the war continues. I think we're seeing what happens to what is happening in Mariupol as we speak. Mariupol is a city of 430,000 citizens. I think it's very similar to Bratislava in terms of size, and it's been totally destroyed. And still, as we speak at this moment, there are still civilians that are in the city trying to find a way out. So I think it is both the loss of life. We Our latest survey that came out today, we also see that our members not only have a number of percentage, I think 14% of the members, they've had employees that have been injured, but also we've had 7% of the companies have had employees that have been killed during the war. So this is really shocking, and the horror stories we hear, especially in places like Irpin, where we had one of the employees of a member company. He was leaving with his wife and 2 children, and he was shot in the head by Russian soldiers in front of his wife and 2 children. And it's the horror, it's the devastation, but at the same time, it is this nation that is fighting. It's fighting for freedom. It's fighting for the future of Europe also. So I think it's very grateful to countries like Slovakia for providing the arms, especially the anti-aircraft or the anti-missiles, because that's the most important. I think Ukrainians can fight on the ground, and they can keep off the Russian soldiers. But again, it's defending that sky, because that's where a lot of the deaths are the cause, is because of the bombing. And we saw bombings yesterday, even in Lviv, of civilian sites that were bombed last night, and 7 civilians killed.
That's terrible, terrible news. Um, After the initial shock, and you already mentioned some of it, it seems that many companies are fortunately still active in business in Ukraine. Can you describe how are your members currently operating in Ukraine? Maybe what are the main challenges that they face, and how do you support them as AmCham within the limited possibilities that the situation allows?
Yeah, well, this is a survey that just came out literally this morning, and so these numbers are still very, very fresh. The number one, what the members are concerned about is obviously the safety and security of employees. The biggest challenge is that. The biggest challenge is the logistics and the transport, because keeping goods moving is a big issue, especially with the ports closed. I mean, I can go more into details about the ports, but again, it's loss of business. I think the World Bank is forecasting that the GDP, we could see a contraction of up to 45%, which is massive. Of an economy last year, it was just under 200 billion US dollars. So the proportions there are massive. But the members, I think number one, what the members did was the humanitarian drive, supporting all those that have left their homes. And we're very grateful to all the AmChams and the US Chamber. On the US Chamber Foundation website, there is a clear link to every single company that has given a donation. The last number I checked was $502 million. And these are companies, like the big ones, like Amazon, like Google, like Grammarly, and Visa, Mastercard. All giving a couple of $1 million to the humanitarian drive. So that was pretty much the number one issue. The safety security of all staff, making sure financially everyone is in a situation. So what the majority of companies have done, I think it was 76%. Not only do they pay salaries in full, but they also give an additional financial support, because the people that have left their homes, they need to rent accommodation, or they need to buy, especially those with children. So, and especially those that end up in a new country in the European Union, where especially further west, further north you go in the EU, it becomes more and more expensive as you travel, and the cost of living is higher, and you're there without a home, without a family, without your goods and your clothing and your car, and so it is quite difficult.
Wow, it's amazing. Andy, how long do you think that companies affected by this war can help or can continue supporting their employees, the families, the community this way?
Well, I think each company is in a different has a different business model. I know what we've done at the AmCham is obviously that was my number one concern from the very beginning, to make sure that financially, firstly it was to keep everyone alive, to keep everyone healthy, but then to make sure that everyone had finances to survive these difficult times. So I think some companies, I mean, our organization, we've definitely got a month by month plan until the end of December 2022. I think we are already putting together a strategy for 2023 and beyond. We have some ideas because, again, we are a member funded organization, and we don't know how many members will be still around to continue. What we are seeing is that 87% of the members, they do want to help in the reconstruction, the rebuilding of the country. So I think that's very important. So the most important thing now is to get the economy back on track. Number one probably would be the ports. Ukraine is a big exporting country. It's big. It's number one in the world for exports of sunflower oil, sunflower seed. It's big in corn, wheat, agriculture, sort of this breadbasket of parts of the world. And at the moment, the Russians have closed off the ports in Mykolaiv, Odessa, and others. I think that's number one, to get those vessels moving. The railways, because of the exports of soft commodities, i.e., grain and seeds, and then also hard commodities like steel, iron ore, and others. Because those that are trying to export now via railways, it's a much more complicated process. What makes it even more complicated is Ukraine has a wide gauge rail track, whereas in Slovakia, you cross the border, it goes into narrow gauge, so then you have to either reload or change the wheels of the train. And there are many challenges. But I think the we've seen this bravery of Ukrainian people. I think businesses also have been brave, and we've seen a lot of destruction. We had one of my favorite factories was the Oreo factory in Trestanets. It was 30 miles near Sumy, near the border with Russia, and that's been totally destroyed. So a biscuit factory, sort of a cookie factory, totally destroyed. The Coca-Cola plant just on the outskirts of Kiev, again, that's being put back on track. Unilever had a Lipton tea facility where they were packaging just in Hostomel. That's been destroyed. We've seen McDonald's restaurants in Bucha destroyed, McDonald's in Kharkiv destroyed in the shopping center. So there's just so much that needs to be rebuilt, the reconstruction, and I think that's where everyone really coming together now, looking forward, looking towards what happens next, and forward looking into the reconstruction of the country.
Andy, do you think there will be a new Marshall Plan for Ukraine? I think there should be. As brave as you fight, Ukraine is fighting also for our freedom. We're neighbors. This war could extend to other European countries. So, have you heard of any news of something like a Marshall Plan for Ukraine in the future once this war is over?
Yeah, I think it will be extremely difficult for Ukraine to rebuild, without significant finances coming in from outside. I think it's really understanding how the structure would be, where the money would come from. We are already in talks with potential reparation costs. So some of the assets that have been frozen, owned by the Russian Federation, that money could be partially used, and really to get the perpetrators to pay for the damage. And I think that would be a path going forward. But again, everyone coming together. So I think especially the US, the United Kingdom, and countries of the EU, all sort of doing their bit in terms of helping put the country back on track. I think we did see what happened in West Germany in 45 and beyond, and how the West German economy just took off. And I think it's possible in Ukraine also. I think this will be a country that's different in terms of even EU now aspirations, and I do think it's going to be very important for everyone to come together to help rebuild this country.
Yeah, I completely agree. Andy, I would be very surprised. Actually, you already have in my opinion, a ticket secured in the European Union by how brave you, your fellow citizens, your president act these days. I think there is an example of how people should act when tough times come. So we should. There is things to learn from you, your president, and your people. Let me switch a little bit to um, what how this war affects Russia, and what are the consequences for Russian Federation when it comes to the war. Many American and international companies have closed their operations and stopped any investments in the country. Do you think that this termination of businesses, together with the economic sanctions that the international brought any positive results? Do you feel like it has been enough?
I do think it's extremely important that these sanctions are in place, and I think it's extremely important that the major US and international corporations and companies stop doing business in Russia. Not only is it now immoral, but now it's also illegal to do new investments in Russia. President Biden last week he signed a executive order banning all new investment going into Russia. Companies should not be financing a pariah regime that is killing innocent women and children, and then funding an army that's raping women in front of their husbands, children in front of their parents. And I think that's very important. Just to understand that these companies shouldn't be there and shouldn't be working and funding such a government. We've been extremely clear on that. I do think it is, that the perpetrator here, is the Russians, the Russian army, and I think the Kremlin's view. I think this is a genocide, trying to exterminate a whole nation. But I think that this is really Ukrainians will fight, and I'm pretty confident Ukraine will win. Hopefully the sooner the better, because it is having a toll on the human life and the human suffering. But I do think, clearly, again, even though the propaganda, Russians are spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on all kinds of propaganda tools. I think, the number one thing is to really get the truth, tell the truth about what's going on. And, saying what's black and what's white and who is the perpetrator here. And, really getting that message out and making sure that they pay for it, for the loss of life, for the damages to the country, to the people, to the economy, to business, and generally, to humanity.
Andy, my following question is based on what you just said. Do you think there can be a reconciliation between Russia and Ukraine, and under which conditions?
I think the number one issue is stop the killing. That is the number one issue. So this is pretty much all it takes is a decision from the Kremlin to say, okay, we're going to pull back the troops, and that's going to stop the killing. I have received numerous messages at the beginning of the war from people I knew in Russia, mainly from the business community, saying, "Oh, how sorry we are about what's going on." I think they're doing this quietly. I have asked some of them to go more public with this. But yes, I do think that Russians will see the truth. The propaganda that this veil will pierce, and we'll see the truth coming out. And I think the Russians will understand, what was going on. And I do think that that there will be, firstly, stopping the killing. Secondly, it's really getting the perpetrators punished, and then after that, we can sort of sit down and then talk how we're going to live as neighbors. So I think, but as I say again, it's really Russia must stop the killing immediately, and the sooner the better.
Andy, a question maybe from if you had this foreseeing ability of telling future, what would be the date that you or time that you would see the end of the war? Do you have any kind of, let's say, hope for any date, or how do you see the future when
Well,
it comes to
I
the
hope
time?
it'll be today. But I think in reality, we do get a lot of various intelligence reports coming in, reports of open source intelligence, and many other reports. And this is something I'm following very closely in terms of military tactics, and how they may be changing now. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not seeing an immediate end. So I think we have been preparing the team and saying we have to things may get worse before they get better, but it's really hoping for the best but preparing for the worst.
Andy, is there something the Slovak business community can do to help Ukrainian businesses or in general the people of Ukraine?
Well, I think firstly, what AmCham Slovakia has done with the support to all our team, is been phenomenal. And we're very grateful, taking us in where we didn't have anywhere to go, and they put us up. They gave us an office. They gave us a platform. I was in Bratislava last month meeting the deputy the vice prime minister at an AmCham event, and I think that that's been phenomenal. I think it really is, telling the truth, seeing what's going on, and I think the military support that Slovakia has provided also has been phenomenal. That is tangibly, saving lives with the bringing down rockets that are being fired at civilians. But again, I do think it really now is, seeing what more we can do together. I think that there are many refugees that are all across Europe, and I think it's really understanding how long they will be out of their homes in terms of employment, and their how they will live until the war goes on. But I do think it really is, it's telling the truth about what's going on, and understanding that Slovakia is in the EU, is a member of NATO. I think that that is very, you know, it's having that reassurance that this, it wouldn't be able for Russia to as easily try and do something in Slovakia. But I think it's the business community coming together and just sharing ideas. I think we had a very good meeting with AmCham Slovakia with the CEOs in Bratislava last month, and it's this opportunity to talk, to share ideas, to bounce off ideas, and to see where we go from here.
Thank you, Andy. I think we are trying also to do, as I mentioned with our little bit, we organized several rounds of call for helping not only those that, as you mentioned, fled the country and are currently in Slovakia, but also you might not know, but we organized kind of a call to help the hospital in Uzhhorod. So we delivered a huge truck of medical supplies the second week of the war in Ukraine or the Russian aggression. So we are trying to help, and thank you for your kind words. We, as if we can, please feel free to reach out. I'm looking forward to talk to your other colleagues. They will share their stories, hopefully, so other people can hear what it is to live in a country that is under attack by Russian Federation, how it affected their lives, their personal lives, their work lives. So we will try, as AmCham Slovakia, do our best to spread the information, share the knowledge, and hopefully help with our little. Andy, if you have anything else that you would like to share, our podcast is coming to the conclusion, but if you would like to share anything else.
I would like to say an absolute massive thank you to AmCham Slovakia, to Ronald, to all the team for the support that they've provided us, especially at the time. A friend in need is really a friend indeed, and we saw that, and at a time where we were at fleeing, we were fleeing the war, and then AmCham Slovakia opened up his arms and took us in. So we're very grateful to that. Thank you to all the Slovakian people for the support. I was in Košice for a number of weeks as we left Ukraine, and I saw the amazing support that the Slovakians are giving the refugees and Ukraine. So very grateful to that. I think it is really understanding that this is a war in 21st century Europe. It's a brutal war. We are seeing the mass graves. We are seeing the rapes. The genocide being committed, something we would thought we wouldn't see in our lives in 21st century Europe in a time of technology and progress. But again, I think it is, telling the truth, keeping this on people's radars, just to see that it is the suffering that continues, and let's work together to end this war as soon as we can.
Andy, thank you very much. I completely agree. We will all try our best, and let's hope for a swift or quick resolution of the situation of the war, and hope the peace will be sooner than later. Thank you, Andy, for sharing your time with us, sharing your stories, the insights. We appreciate. We wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we might talk again sometimes
Thank you,
in the
Veronika. I'm
future.
very grateful. God bless.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.